Welcome to Bless Them Boys, a podcast where one host is flying solo while the other flew the coop. I am one Saints fan, not a Cowboys fan, one fan of Who Dat, and have no real strong opinion of Dat win. I'm here to give you weekly takes, game recaps, bad betting picks, game previews, and some Seinfeld references. With the NFL draft rapidly approaching, each week we want to highlight one former Saint and one former Cowboy drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. For this week, our patron saint is running back Ricky Williams. Williams was drafted 5th overall out of Texas. So shout out to my co-host Brandon there, the UT alum that he is. The Saints traded away their 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks in 1999, as well as their 1st and 3rd round picks in 2000 to the Washington football team at the time, so they can move up from 12 to 5 in order to select the Heisman Trophy winner, Mr. Ricky Williams. Fun fact, I actually got to see Ricky Williams play his final collegiate game at UT, at the Cotton Bowl against Mississippi State, when he broke the rushing record at the time. New Year's Day, 1999, as a matter of fact. Williams would play for the Saints for 3 seasons. He reached 1,000 yards rushing twice. He was traded in 2002 to the Miami Dolphins. After 2 seasons with the Dolphins, Williams would retire and sit out the entire 2004 season before returning in 2005. He missed the entire 2006 season due to a violation of the league's substance abuse policy. Was reinstated for the 2007 season, and Williams remained with the Dolphins through 2010. And he completed his career in 2011. He played his final season with the Baltimore Ravens. In his career, Ricky Williams rushed for over 10,000 yards. He was named to 1 Pro Bowl, 1 AP All-Pro, and those were both in 2002 as a member of the Dolphins. And he also surpassed the 1,000-yard rushing mark 3 times with the Dolphins. Our patron Cowboy this week, since Brandon's not here, I'm going to cheat and use a Cowboy/Saint. This is Brandon Cooks, who was drafted in the first round. However, he was drafted not by the Cowboys, but by the Saints. Cooks was drafted 20th overall by the Saints in the 2014 draft after the Saints traded up from 27 to 20 with the Arizona Cardinals and included a 3rd-round pick to do so. Cooks would play for the Saints for 3 seasons, hit the 1,000-yard receiving mark in 2 of those 3 seasons. And then in 2017, Cooks was sent to New England along with a 4th-round pick for a 1st-round pick that turned into Ryan Ramczyk, who is most likely going to be retiring here pretty soon. And the Saints also in that trade got a 3rd-round pick that turned into Trey Hendrickson, who's been in the news a little bit lately. Cooks lasted 1 season in New England. After that, he was traded to the Rams along with a 4th-round pick for a 1st and a 6th-round pick. So that's right. Brandon Cooks was traded twice, and both times garnered 1st-round picks. Now, for context, both of those 1st-round picks, I believe, were late 1st round. So after 2 seasons with the Rams, Cooks was traded again, this time to the Houston Texans, along with a 4th-round pick for a 2nd-round pick. Then after 3 seasons with Houston, he was traded once more to the Cowboys, along with a 5th-round pick in exchange for a 6th-round pick. Cooks is scheduled to become a free agent. He currently, as we are speaking, is a free agent officially for the first time. In his career, Cooks has accumulated over 9,000 career receiving yards, so not quite at the 10,000 mark that Immaculate Grid uses, but he has gone over 1,000 receiving yards 6 times. Twice with the Saints, we mentioned earlier, once with the Patriots, once with the Rams, twice with the Texans. He has yet to make a Pro Bowl. He has also never been voted AP All-Pro, and he has not yet won a Super Bowl. I'm Paul, the Saints fan. Brandon, the Cowboys fan, is missing this week, but our good friend Izzy is here to tell us what time it is.
Yeah, that's it. It's go time. Let's see you lift that.
Mr. Mandelbaum, please.
It's go time.
This one's for you, Pop. It's go time.
It's go time.
been married 3 times.
That's it! It's go time!
It's go time.
All right. So as I mentioned,
That's it. It's go time.
sorry about that. Izzy got a little carried away there. As I mentioned, Brandon's not here this week, but we're pressing on. Wanted to give you guys a show this week, talk a little bit about free agency and the like, and we'll do a couple of other things. But before we get to that, a few housekeeping items. If you want to contact the show, you can still do so via email, blessthemboys@gmail.com. That's BLESSDEMBOYZ@gmail.com. How's your team out there doing? How do you feel? How do you feel about your team's free agency? Let us know. Shoot us an email. You can also find us on Twitter /X. We're still at bless_dem_boys. Capital B, capital D, capital B. You can follow myself. I'm at Paul Elliott _316. PAULELLIOTT _316. Brandon is at Ball from Grace. We're still on Blue Sky. Haven't checked Blue Sky. Actually, not. That's not true. I checked it today. I don't think we have any more followers, but we're still. You can catch us there as well. If you're listening to us, first of all, thank you. You can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. Appreciate all the feedback. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell random strangers on the street. All right, so like I said, we're going to get into the free agency. This will probably be a shorter episode this week, but we'll get into all the free agency. We actually just had some breaking free agency news here as I was turning the mics on, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, just like our good friend George, we here at Bless Them Boys pride ourselves on being able to talk about other things.
But enough about fish. I can discuss other things,
Okay, so I'm not going to speak for Brandon. I don't know what he got up to this week, but I will speak for myself. I actually knocked out quite a few things this week. I'll start with the TV side here. White Lotus season 3 still going strong. Really strong into this episode. Looks like it's going to be a jam-packed episode here coming up next week, or this week, or this Sunday, I should say. Severance, I believe they have 2 episodes left. This episode this past week was a little divisive among those folks who watched Severance. For what it's worth, it was one of the only episodes. So I usually, excuse me, I usually watch Severance Thursday nights. It drops Thursday night around 8:00 where I am. So I try to stay up and just watch it Thursday night. And normally, without fail, I end up, dozing off, pulling a Newman, as we've talked about on the show before. But this week, for whatever reason, this past week, I should say, for whatever reason, this episode, I stayed up and watched the whole thing from start to finish. So that's not an indication of how the quality of the episode. I thought it was a pretty good episode. I know I can see why some people maybe didn't feel that way. It can definitely be a matter of taste, as it were. And then also on Sunday night after White Lotus, well, actually, it debuted on Sunday night. I didn't watch it until Monday morning, but The Righteous Gemstones came back on Max. And this is a show that if you enjoy, I never saw the show, but Vice Principals, it's Danny McBride is in Righteous Gemstones. Adam McKay, Walton Goggins, who's also in White Lotus this season, John Goodman, star-studded cast. This is actually their last season that they are starting, or that they started this past Sunday. Their first episode of this season was a little different than what they've done in the past. So if you've watched the previous 3 seasons, haven't watched the season opener yet, just be prepared. It's a little different. I still think it was a great hour of television for sure, but just be prepared for that. The other thing, television related, that I watched last week is Daredevil Born Again. I mentioned it on the show last week. The first 2 episodes of their new season on Disney Plus dropped, and it is a continuation of the Netflix show that was out, or that got canceled, I believe, in I think it was 2017 when it got canceled. It had lasted 3 seasons on Netflix. Excuse me. Uh, this the first 2 episodes were really good. Again, I can see where some folks are maybe where they come off as maybe not too excited about what's going on with the show, but I, I'm I'm down for it. I think it's good so far. It's definitely it's going to be a little slower, probably building up, but I think we'll get to a good place there. All right, so movies now. I watched a lot of movies over between last week and this week. Let me start with a film. This is a newer film. A couple of films from last year, from 2024, that I saw. Heretic, starring Hugh Grant. I thought was so. Again, I've mentioned on the show before. I'm not a big horror fan, and I would definitely classify this as, well, I guess it's more of a thriller. It has some horror elements to it, but it's Hugh Grant and Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East play these two Mormons who are going around evangelizing, and they happen upon this house that is owned by Hugh Grant, and things ensue. I'll just say the action picks up from there. There's a couple of good plot twists. Things that I enjoy. There are a couple of good twists there of you kind of see what Hugh Grant's up to, and he's kind of throughout the movie, I should say, is underestimating these young ladies, and see what happens. It's described as kind of a cat and mouse game, is one of the descriptions, and that's probably an apt description of that movie. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Another movie from 2024 that I saw for the first time, The Order, starring Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult and Ty Sheraton. This is based on a true story. It's about Jude Law plays an FBI agent. He's trying to stop this Aryan Brotherhood, kind of a split off from the Aryan Brotherhood up in Oregon, I believe, Pacific Northwest somewhere. And then Ty Sheridan plays kind of the local police that's assisting Jude Law in his quest to kind of stop these. They're basically, this offshoot group of the Aryan Brotherhood is doing bank robberies to gear up, as it were, and to fund their activities. So that's where it kind of starts, and then it goes from there. Nicholas Hoult plays the leader of the group, and if you've seen Nicholas Hoult in anything, the most recent thing I saw before this was Juror Number 2. I know Brandon saw Nosferatu. He's also in that. He's just a solid actor. He's a very good actor. He's going to be Nicholas Hoult. That is, he's going to be Lex Luthor in the upcoming Superman movie. So, looking forward to that. But I would recommend both those movies, Heretic and The Order. And then, actually, another newer release that I saw was actually the Oscar winner for Best Animated Film, Flow. This is one of those things where I think it was Sunday afternoon. Just looking for something to watch, turn on Max, and Flow was available. It's about an hour and a half. It's an animated movie. For those that don't know anything about this movie, follows the adventures of a cat, and there's no dialogue. It's animation. There's only music and basically the sounds of the cat and the cat's animal friends. But don't let that description make you think it's not a good movie, because it is. It's very good, and it's not just something that I'm sure the kids will like. Our kids just didn't happen to be in the room when we were watching it. Like I said, it's just something I just wanted to throw something on, and I had heard good things about it, and yeah, it's definitely worth the time. Like I said, it's about an hour and a half. It's on Max, so definitely recommend checking it out. Now for some movies of years gone by. On Saturday, I watched Stand By Me, the Rob Reiner directed adaptation of the Stephen King story, The Body. This is, I believe it was 1986 when this came out. Stars Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell. Those are the main four kids. It's about these four kids. Jerry O'Connell's character comes to them at the beginning of the movie and says the classic line is, "You guys want to see a dead body?" They go off on this kind of adventure to see this dead body, and it's narrated by Richard Dreyfuss. He is the older version of one of the kids, kind of retelling this story, and it's just a really well done film. I couldn't recommend it enough. I can't believe I hadn't seen it before. Now I knew about it. My biggest interaction, I guess, or biggest knowledge of the movie was from the Family Guy. Family Guy did a parody episode called Three Kings, where they did a parody of this movie, Stand By Me, Misery, and Shawshank Redemption, which were probably the three biggest adaptations, Stephen King adaptations, um, that I or at least that I would say are the three biggest Stephen King adaptations, which is kind of weird to think about because Stephen King is so known for horror. And those three movies, well, I guess Misery, that's another one that's on my list. I need to knock that one off. But those three movies are, I would say, a little more grounded than, say something else that, like something like The Stand that Stephen King, that was made into a miniseries, or, Pet Cemetery, or things like that. So, Stand By Me, if you haven't seen it, again, could not recommend it enough. Another 5-star movie that I saw for me, Jaws, which again, I'm not a horror fan, and I had seen Jaws. I knew I'd seen enough clips to know obviously what it was about. This movie's from 1975, and it still plays. It's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and it still plays like could have been made last year. Could have been made, uh, more recently. The score from John Williams. I always knew the main theme, the Sharks theme, as it were, but the whole score is just brilliant. Very well done. Actually, another movie starring Richard Dreyfuss. So I must have been on a Richard Dreyfuss kick and didn't know it on Saturday. But yeah, Stand By Me and Jaws, two five-star movies. I'm trying to think if there's any. Oh, actually, no, that wasn't a Seinfeld connection. I was thinking if there was a Seinfeld connection, but there's no. There's actually two connections to Golden Girls in both these movies. Stand By Me, the guy who, at one point in the film, Will Wheaton's character has to go shopping because they're going out camping and they need food and stuff. So he goes shopping, and the gentleman that rings him up at the country store was in an episode of Golden Girls. And then in Jaws, the gentleman who plays the mayor that is like harassing Roy Scheider to keep the beach open, it's Murray Hamilton, and he also was in episode or two of Golden Girls. So not sure if there was any Seinfelds, but definitely some Golden Girls. Golden Girls, another great show for those that haven't seen that one. Then also on Sunday, I watched. So there's a new movie out by Bong Joon-ho. I think we discussed them last week because I drafted Parasite in our Best Picture winner. His new movie is called Mickey 17. I was not able to go see that. However, what I did watch in its stead, I guess, is Snowpiercer, which is 2014, 2013, I believe, movie by Bong Joon-ho. It stars Chris Evans. Captain America is in this Bong Joon-ho movie, and it's probably the best performance of Chris Evans' career, honestly. He's in it. Tilda Swinton is in it, gives a great performance. There's a couple of good supporting performances. Actually, the gentleman who's in Parasite, who plays the father in Parasite, he also is in Snowpiercer. This movie, I just had a really enjoyable time watching it, I would say. Wasn't perfect by any means, but it was definitely worth the time. Jamie Bell is also in this movie. Song Kang-ho is the gentleman I was referring to. That's also in Parasite. That's also in Snowpiercer. And then also Octavia Spencer shows up and gives great performance. She's always, I've never seen Octavia Spencer in anything where she wasn't good, this included. So yeah, Snowpiercer, very good film. If you're looking to watch Bong Joon Ho film, that's a little. I think it, from what I've heard, it's a little more towards what Mickey 17 is trying to do. The themes are still. It's funny because the only two Bong Joon Ho films I've seen so far are Parasite and Snowpiercer, and they're they're different in genre, but I would say the themes are the same. There's themes of class and those kind of big picture ideas like that, just told two separate ways. So definitely recommend both Snowpiercer and obviously Parasite if you haven't seen those. And then finally, uh, probably the most delightful thing I watched this weekend, Best in Show by Christopher Guest. This is a mockumentary about um, dog owners who bring their dogs to dog shows. It stars the usual troupe of Christopher Guest folks: Eugene Levy, um, Catherine O'Hara, Michael McKean, John Michael Higgins, Christopher Guest himself is in the movie. It's Fred Willard. So to give you kind of a perspective, I started the movie, and at about 10 minutes in, I pulled up IMDb because I was trying to pinpoint who one of the actors were, and it turned out to be Christopher Guest's character of Harlan Pepper. But in looking at the IMDb and the cast, when you look at it, they usually give you kind of the top four, and the first one listed was Fred Willard, and Fred Willard hadn't shown up yet, I enjoy Fred Willard from Anchorman, among other things, but I was like, oh, Fred Willard's in this. Okay, cool. I wonder when he's going to show up. And then they get to the actual dog show, and Fred Willard is the commentator. He's the lead commentator, kind of like if you've watched the Westminster Dog Show on ABC every Thanksgiving after the Macy's Parade, kind of what John O'Hurley, Seinfeld alum John O'Hurley, kind of what he does. This Fred Willard's doing that in this movie, and he's hilarious. Everything he says is funny. It's like I said, it was the most delightful thing I watched all weekend. So I want to thank the Rewatchables podcast because that's the reason I watched it, is so that I could listen to their episode. Their episode on it dropped today. That's the Rewatchables. So I would definitely go check that out. If you've seen the movie, go check that out for sure. It's great. Great podcast. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I saw. I don't think there's anything else. Let me just pull up. Actually, while I'm looking at this, I will let folks know if you're interested. I do have an account. Excuse me, on Letterbox. If you are not familiar with Letterbox, that's kind of a social media type platform for films. You can go on there and rate films, almost like IMDb, but with a little bit more of a social component. So if you are on IMDb and you'd like to follow me, I would definitely appreciate it. I am Paul Elliott. Paul Elliott 0316 is my handle, I guess, as it were. I'm just pulling this up to make sure I didn't miss anything. Pulling up my activity here. Let's see, Snowpiercer, The Order, Nope. Yep. That looks like the long and short of it. So we have a running note in our show notes for DoorDash incidents. No DoorDash incidents this week. Actually, just used DoorDash right before I started recording. Ordered some food. Shout out to Walk-Ons, which is a local establishment. It's actually based out of Louisiana, but they have an establishment here close to where I live. So good food there. Let's transition now out of the non-football related stuff, and let's talk about let's go through some news and notes Um, and obviously, right now I am recording this on March 11th. The free agency, the legal tampering window, whatever you want to call it, opened yesterday at noon Eastern, or as the NFL says it, noon New York time. And we've had quite a bit of activity, not just for the Saints and Cowboys, although I'll kind of focus on that first, and then we'll go, to the rest of the NFL. For the Saints, I think this was Saturday or Sunday. This news came out. Derek Carr, they did basically a simple restructure, which is something that was in his contract that the Saints could do. I do find it interesting that. So I guess let me start here. I told Brandon, I just called it a refinance, like you're refinancing your car, which is basically what they did. They basically took a big chunk of his salary, converted it to a signing bonus to save cap this year, and then they can spread it out over the next couple of years. But I did find it interesting that Albert Breer, he kind of in his Monday morning quarterback that he does for Sports Illustrated, he kind of, I don't want to say spoke to, he kind of questioned, like, is this really done? Like, are the Saint, is the saga, I think is how he described it, and I apologize if I'm misphrasing, but is the Derek Carr saga really over? Because this move was basically made unilaterally, meaning it was just the Saints did it. Again, it's part of Carr's contract when he signed his contract back 2 years ago. This is part of it, which basically the Saints retain the right to just do this restructure whenever they need. And Albert Breer, that is, kind of, he kind of said, well, that they could maybe trade him. The Saints, that is, could maybe trade him, but that you don't usually do this kind of restructure to do a trade. But I wanted to play you a clip here. This is from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. He and Chris Sims do a daily show, and he kind of gave his 2 cents on this situation.
I don't think it's 100% fully and completely guaranteed Derek Carr is on the Saints this year. I think he could be traded after the draft, depending upon who's got quarterbacks and who doesn't.
Right.
And after June 1. Okay. For cap reasons, it would have to be. Remember when DeAndre Hopkins got traded, I think, from the Cardinals to the Titans? It was that whole – or Julio Jones was the one. Julio Jones got traded after June 1 to divide the cap hit over multiple years. The Saints would have to wait until after June 1. But I was poking around a little bit after they did this restructuring because the Saints restructuring of Carr's contract was automatic. He didn't agree to anything. He'd already agreed to it when he signed his contract, just like CeeDee Lamb had, just like Dak Prescott had. These are the things the teams bake into the contracts. The Saints had the right to do it, but they explored their options, and I heard enough to suggest that there could be delayed reaction depending upon who might want him after the draft. Because the Saints are just kind of like, yeah, we're not going to say we're rebuilding, but
right. We're rebuilding.
What do we really have right now?
That's what I was right. That goes back to our conversation of like coaches that had options as far as where to go and be a head coach. The Saints they got some issues. I know Demario Davis tried to say all the right things to us in the Super Bowl, but that's what he believes. He plays there. You look at them, you realize, they're a team that kind of needs to rip the Band-Aid off, take a step back to move 2 steps forward, and you would think Derek Carr could certainly help that. I'm be interested, Mike. I'll certainly be looking out for it as we go on throughout the offseason.
And I remember
Yeah, so again, that was Mike Florio and Chris Sims on the Pro Football Talk podcast, just kind of talking through. So you heard Mike say it there. This restructure did not have to be agreed by Derek Carr. This was something that was baked into his contract. He cited other examples there of CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott to kind of use my friend Brandon's Cowboys as an example. So I've kind of where I am is kind of I'm going to wait and see. Until the 2025 season kicks off in September, that first Sunday in September, um, and Derek Carr is the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, that's when I'll believe it. I do think that there is a possibility he gets traded, something happens. I don't know. The fellas over at Saints Block Party Podcast, they kind of were under the impression that if Kellen Moore took the job, Derek Carr was not going to be the quarterback, and then kind of feels like maybe Mickey Loomis did some voodoo. I don't know, did something to kind of change Kellen Moore's mind. Which, if that's the case,
Well, it sucks.
yeah, thanks, Frank. Yeah, I'll side with my friend Frank there. But we'll see what happens. I know there's been rumblings throughout this offseason. I've heard Tom Pelissero. I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago on the Rich Eisen show. He mentioned that there's coaches around the league who are impressed with Spencer Rattler and what he can do. I don't know if Kellen Moore is one of those coaches, but we'll see. I was listening to earlier today. I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast he had on his guys that run the kind of the Ringer Fantasy Football podcast, and they were kind of talking about the Saints, and he basically says the Saints have to be the most depressing situation as a fan. And Bill, if you're listening to this, yeah, I can concur. It's pretty bad right now, but we'll see. Now, one of the reasons that they did this restructure, the Saints that is so they could be a little more active in free agency. Monday morning, we got word, speaking of Bill Simmons, that the Saints completed a trade with Bill's team, the New England Patriots, and traded for Devon Godshaw, a defensive tackle. So it's one of these situations where Mike Vrabel is coming in, has a defensive scheme that maybe Godshaw doesn't necessarily fit into. On the flip side, Brandon Staley coming in as a defensive coordinator for the Saints, maybe running a 3-4 scheme. Then Godshaw maybe fits into that. If at the bare minimum, Godshaw is a run-stuffing defensive tackle. Saints had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL last year. I believe they were 31st against the run. Brian Brzee, even though he's shown promise from a pass rushing perspective as a defensive tackle, hasn't been there in the run defense. So Godshaw hopefully will help that. The Saints also extended Nathan Shepard, talking about defensive tackles, and they reworked, I believe they did a restructure on Colin Saunders, Bink Saunders. I really like Colin. Is it Kalen? I could be. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he's the guy. If you remember, in the Saints Chiefs Monday night game on Monday night this year, he had caught the interception at the 1 yard line and started running back and just looked like a little bowling ball running down the field there. But yeah, he's great. Hopefully, I hope he sticks around. I hope the Saints kind of use him on offense. Honestly, use him as like a fullback maybe, but we'll see. Also on the defensive line specifically, the Saints re-signed Chase Young. That was honestly a surprise. Not so much that the Saints would want to re-sign Chase Young, it's that Chase Young would want to stay with the Saints. They obviously gave him the money to help him out. 3 years, I believe it was $51 million. Actually, let me pull up the numbers here so I can. Yeah, 3 years, $51 million for Chase. So good for him. Good for the Saints. Keeping somebody. We'll see. Again, we'll see how obviously they think he fits in Brandon Staley's scheme. Excuse me. Otherwise, they wouldn't have re-signed him. And then they also re-signed today Juwan Johnson, tight end Juwan Johnson, who had a market. Apparently, I haven't heard exactly who those teams were, but the Saints felt like they needed to retain him. 3 years, $30.75 million. I'm not mad that they retained Juwan Johnson. That price doesn't. I don't love it. Uh, Juwan had his best season this past year, and he caught 50 passes. So that he's definitely got the talent. He's a converted wide receiver. He was an undrafted free agent out of Oregon, converted from wide receiver to tight end, and he's shown signs, shown promise. I know Kellen Moore, when he was with Philadelphia, the tight end position, Dallas Goedert was definitely a weapon for them. So we'll see if Juwan Johnson maybe fills that role. Also, the Saints re-signed Dante Pettis. This one kind of flew under the radar. Look, Dante Pettis was somebody who came in during the season last year after all the injuries with Olave and Shaheed, and played his role. Obviously, they felt like he deserved a 1-year deal to come back. I was happy to see it. We'll see what happens with Valdez Scantling. I still would like to see them bring him back potentially. They definitely should target receiver in the draft. I don't know if they're going to do that at 9. Tedrow McMillan's a name that's been surfaced around. Brandon's golden boy, Matthew Golden from UT. I don't know if that he really fits what the Saints need. McMillan's more that what the Saints need, I think, which is somebody who can make a tough catch, kind of your goal line presence type receiver. So be interesting to see. And then this afternoon, I was decided to run to the grocery store and pick some stuff up, and I'm leaving the store, and I thought, and I get a ping. By the way, if you haven't signed up for Adam Schefter's alerts from ESPN, I would recommend it. It's definitely something to get. That's basically all the messages I've been getting for the last 2 days have been Adam Schefter reporting so and so is doing this. So I get an alert, and of course, the message that I get on the preview, it just says so and so has signed, and then you have to actually open it to see who he signed with. But for this particular one, it said Justin Reed signs with the Saints. I'm like, oh, that must be a mistake. And then I open it up, and sure enough, Justin Reed, safety from the Chiefs. So shout out to my guy Blake, the Chiefs fan. Another Chiefs safety comes over to New Orleans, following Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu, who actually took a pay cut. I believe. I mean, I'm not gonna. Putting two and two together, I'm wondering if he maybe took that pay cut so this signing could happen. Justin Reed here. Should point out, Justin Reed is a local guy. He is from Geismar, Louisiana, down near the Baton Rouge area. He did not go to LSU. I believe he went to Stanford. He and Tyrann Mathieu were teammates on the Houston Texans going back a few years. And then going back to Devon Godshaw, he is from Plaquemine, which is also near Baton Rouge. Plaquemine and Geismar are not close to each other. They're kind of on opposite sides of Baton Rouge, kind of in the toe of the boot. If you look at Louisiana, the state of Louisiana as a boot. But Godshaw did go to LSU. He is an LSU guy, and there's been this floating theory. Obviously, a lot of Saints fans are also LSU fans, and there's been this floating theory around for the last couple of years that the Saints just do not draft or pick up guys from LSU. Well, now we've got a couple. Now we've got Godshaw, have Tyrann Mathieu, who obviously was a standout player at LSU. So now would be really something. What really would be something is if we end up drafting, let's say, Mason Taylor from LSU, the tight end, or Will Campbell, who I saw him in a mock draft today, kind of a post mock draft or post free agency mock draft. So so the Saints are, they're in it. I should point out they did lose Will Harris to the Washington Commanders. So they basically traded Will Harris for Justin Reed. Feel like that's a good upgrade. Time will tell, I guess. We also did lose Paulson Adebo from a corner position. So very quickly, the cornerback position has become, I would say, a need for the Saints. They have Kool-Aid McKinstry and they have Alante Taylor. But obviously trading Lattimore last year, and now losing Paulson Debo. Debo missed a good portion of the season with a broken leg. He is coming off a broken leg, so good for him to get. He got 3 years, $54 million from the Giants. Giants also signing Javon Holland from the Dolphins, so they're kind of working on their secondary there. So, we'll see how that works out. See what the Saints see. Maybe the Saints aren't done yet in free agency. Indications are that they may not be done. I don't know. I know they have. So with Jawan Johnson, with Chase Young, both of those players had void years I would have processed had they not signed these extensions. So we're good there. The only other player that I'm aware of that they have a void on is Tano Passanio, who's a defensive end. I don't know if they're in a big hurry to re-sign him, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. The league year officially starts noon Eastern time, or noon New York time, as the NFL says, tomorrow. So let's see. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Even though Brandon's not here, I'll just kind of speak on them a little bit. So we talked. I think this news had dropped last week when we recorded, but Osa Odighizuwa, their defensive interior, they were going to franchise tag him, but then they ended up getting a deal done. Brandon, along with a lot of Cowboys fans, seem happy about that number, especially now too with some other moves that have happened around the league. They also signed Javonte Williams, the running back from Denver. When I sent this to Brandon, he texted me back, "Oh, is this a Saints-Cowboys Immaculate Grid match?" And I said, "No, Javonte didn't play for the Saints." He thought I meant Jamal Williams, who the Saints released last week. We talked a little bit about that last week. Cowboys also re-signed Kevontae Turpin. Brandon was definitely happy about this. Return specialist, kind of a speed slot receiver for them. So it's good for them. A couple other re-signings here. Their punter, Brian Anger, and then their long snapper, Trent Sieg, I believe is how you pronounce it. And then CJ Goodwin, cornerback. And then they signed from other teams Robert Jones, who's an offensive lineman, a guard. So I'm guessing he's going to be kind of used to try to fill the hole left by Zach Martin's retirement. Solomon Thomas, defensive tackle, defensive interior. And then here is an actual Saints-Cowboys Immaculate Grid match, or future Immaculate Grid match, I should say. Remember, to be an Immaculate Grid match, he actually has to play a game for the Cowboys. And that's Peyton Turner, who was a 2021 first-round pick for the Saints at the edge position out of U of H. Didn't really work out for the Saints. I think the biggest play he ever made as a Saint was he blocked a kick at one. I'm trying to remember. I want to say that was the Atlanta game at Dennis Allen's first game as head coach when Jameis made a wild comeback and then they had to block a kick at the end to seal it. I could be misremembering though. But so for the Cowboys, they are looking pretty good, I'd say. From what I've been texting back and forth with Brandon, seems like he's happy about it. So I guess for that team and for the Saints as well, it's kind of can we stay healthy now? Can we keep these guys on the field long enough to get something done this season? Talk about a few other things. Obviously, the big story here, or the big movers here, are the quarterbacks. So over the weekend, we had Geno Smith go from the Seahawks to the Raiders. So he's reunited with Pete Carroll there. I think that's a good move for the Raiders. Opens them up at the 6th overall pick now. They can maybe go Ashton Genty. They could do the funniest thing ever and just draft Tyler Warren to go with Brock Powers, which I wouldn't recommend it, but it's their pick. They do what they want. They also could maybe be looking at Tedoroa McMillan from Arizona at the wide receiver position. But Geno, this definitely opens them up. Brandon and I had kind of been thinking for a while this was a Shedeur Sanders spot, and maybe it still is, but now that doesn't have to be for sure with Geno. And AFC West has just gotten a lot more interesting now. So now you have Pete Carroll and Geno in Vegas. You have Harbaugh and Herbert in LA with the Chargers, Peyton and Nix in Denver, and obviously Mahomes and Reed in Kansas City. I still think, it's probably going to be the most competitive division in the league next year. So something to look for. Today, well, I guess the kind of a ripple effect, a domino effect from Geno going to the Raiders. What's Seattle going to do? Well, Seattle signed Sam Darnold from the Vikings, giving him a 3-year, $100 million contract. So with the Seahawks, Mike McDonald's the coach. They just went 10. They went 10-7 last year in his first year. Almost made the playoffs. They only missed the playoffs because of the strength of schedule or strength of victory tiebreaker. It was like the last tiebreaker. With Darnold now, and then also they have a new offensive staff. They basically hired the Saints offensive staff from last year. Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach. So now with Darnold, I don't know how that's going to work, how his skill set will work in that offense. But again, we'll see. He and Kubiak were together, I believe, in San Francisco when Darnold was the backup there. So that'll be interesting to see. They do need to fix their interior, their offensive line. Let me see what else Seattle's done in free agency besides that. So they have they signed Darnold. They did sign Josh Jones, who's a tackle, for a 1-year deal. And by the way, they also traded DK Metcalf to the Steelers. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. But so Seattle, finishing second in the division last year to Los Angeles, to the Rams. I guess we'll use that as kind of a transition to the Rams. The Rams looks like they're going to be out of the Cooper Cup business tomorrow when the league year starts officially. They will be releasing Cooper Cup. They couldn't get a trade facilitated, so they're going to release him. But they've already got his replacement. That's Devontae Adams. 2 years, $46 million for Devontae. And he will be taking the number 17 number from Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua going to go back to his college number of 12. So, and then again, they'll lose Cup, but got to feel pretty good. They did trade Jonah Jackson to the Bears. We'll talk about the Bears here in a little bit. But they did re-sign Alaric Jackson, their tackle. They also re-signed Tutu Atwell, another receiver. Obviously, they restructured Stafford. I think we talked about that last week. And then they re-signed Jimmy G to back up Stafford. So I don't see any reason why the Rams can't be, for sure, the front runner in the NFC West, but also, has been said many places, not just here, they were the one team that kind of gave Philadelphia the fits, as it were, in the playoffs. And that was in the snow in Philadelphia. So be interested to see what the Rams do. That NFC West as a whole is going to be interesting. We just talked about Seattle, the Rams. With the Cardinals, they haven't really done a lot, but let me go up here. They did sign Josh Sweat from the Eagles, so the Eagles losing a lot of pieces there on their defense. They also signed Jacoby Brissett to back up Kyler Murray. A lot of smoke out there about Kyler Murray potentially getting traded. I don't know if there's fire there, but it'll be something to keep an eye on. If nothing else, Jacoby Brissett, I think, will be a good backup to have for Kyler for that team for this year. Excuse me. And then the other team in the NFC West, the 49ers, they are just losing people left and right. Greenlaw, Dre Greenlaw went to the Broncos. Hufanga, their safety, he also was with the Broncos. 2 great signings, I think, by the Broncos personally. That'll be. They also released Javon Hargrave, who is going to go to Minnesota. It looks like. Leonard Floyd was released. He's going to go to Atlanta. It looks like. I was kind of hoping he'd go to the Saints, but that's besides the point. They obviously traded Deebo Samuel. We talked about that. They also released Kyle Juszczyk, their longtime fullback, who definitely has been an integral piece to their team. And you might be saying, well, why are they doing this? Well, they got to pay Brock Purdy. That's the long and short of it. They're trying to clear the deck so they can get Brock Purdy paid, and we'll see what happens there. They did sign Luke Farrell, a tight end. Where was Luke previously? I think he came from Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. Just gonna. I believe he came from Jacksonville. I'll have to chase that down. Yes, came from Jacksonville previously. So another tight end to pair with Mr. Kittle, as it were. So that's the NFC West. I didn't mean for it to go down that path. Some other big news. Let's go back to the quarterbacks for a little bit. So we talked about Darnold to Seattle. Today we had Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, one of our favorites here at Bless Them Boys. He ended up signing with the Indianapolis Colts, which I got to be honest, I feel like he's going to be the starter for the Colts this year. I know in a perfect world, and the Colts signed him to a 1-year, $14 million deal. I know in a perfect world, Anthony Richardson beats him out. At least in a perfect world, I think for the Colts, Anthony Richardson beats him out in training camp. But Danny Dimes, he's a weird case. I kind of thought he'd get a little more interest. Maybe even I really thought the Steelers might look at him. We'll talk about maybe their plans here in a little bit, but excuse me. But with him in Indianapolis, I definitely think there's a better than 50-50 chance that Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback for the Colts next year. I mean, they've got the offensive line, although they did lose two of their interior. They lost their center, Ryan Kelly, and Will Freeze. I believe they both went to the Vikings, as a matter of fact. I'll double check that here in a second. But so they're going to have to replenish there. They've got, obviously, Jonathan Taylor. They've got some good receivers. So they just need somebody, a quarterback that can get him the ball on a regular basis. So we'll see. I mean, again, if you're a Colts fan, hopefully this kind of gives Richardson a kick in the backside, as it were, and you can build with that. So we'll see. The other quarterback signing I want to mention, Justin Fields going to the New York Jets, 2 years, $40 million. I'm rooting for him. I hope this works out for him. Hope it works out for the Jets, because it feels like this will be a good situation for him. The Jets are kind of obviously starting over. Rodgers is out. Devontae Adams is out. We'll see. They obviously still have Garrett Wilson, and obviously there's a Ohio State connection there. Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields. They have the young back Breece Hall. So I think they've got some pieces there in the AFC East. I won't. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to compete for the AFC East. Obviously, Buffalo's still the team to beat in that division. The other team in that division that is going to come on strong here is the Patriots. Let's talk about the Patriots just for a second. They've been busy. If you're a Patriots fan, you kind of like to see this. I mean, they've had money and they're spending it, and it looks like they're spending it somewhat wisely. So we talked about they traded Devon Godshaw to the Saints to make room so they could sign defensive lineman Milton Williams from the Eagles, who was part of that Super Bowl team and a big part of that Super Bowl team. So good signing there. They also signed Harold Landry from the Titans. So that's a Mike Vrabel guy that he brings over. Carlton Davis from the Lions. I think that's a really good signing for them. Pair him with Christian Gonzalez. Robert Spillane from the Raiders. That Bill Simmons talked about this on his podcast. He was really excited about the Spillane signing. They also brought in Morgan Moses from the Jets as a tackle. I think they still need to figure out that offensive line, get that offensive line straight to protect the Drake, as it were. And then they also re-signed Austin Hooper. It looks like they signed Mac Hollins, wide receiver Mac Hollins from the Bills. So, which I think that'll turn out to be a good signing as well. And speaking of the Drake, they got him a backup, Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, to come in and help him out in relief as if needed. So yeah, I think if you're a Patriots fan, the needle is pointing up for sure. I think that, depending on how Drake handles the new offense with McDaniels, which should be fine, but we'll see. You still gotta. They don't play the games on paper. They play them in the television, as I heard once upon a time. Let's look through some other teams here. Some other big moves. Talking about the quarterback Zach Wilson going to Miami to back up. Staking in the NFC East there to back up Tua. Again, I kind of hope for the best for Zach Wilson. I hope that works out for him. Another kind of sneaky signing, a couple sneaky signings by the Dolphins here. They got guard James Daniels from the Steelers, so to help their offensive line. And they got wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine from the Titans, who I think is one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. So be interested to see what happens there. I know they still have kind of the Tyreek Hill thing. Does he want out? Does he not? We'll see how that goes. Obviously, Jalen Waddle still there. So they released Raheem Mostert, the running back, but obviously Devon Achan's there. So we'll see how that goes. Moving to, I guess let's kind of go around the divisions a little bit. The Houston Texans. Let's go to the AFC South here and talk about the Houston Texans. So this is something that Brandon and I have been talking about via text. So the Texans had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year, and I don't think it's up for much debate. C.J. Stroud was running for his life, especially at the playoffs. So their answer to that was to trade Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders, trade Kenyon Green to the Eagles, and in return get Saints legend Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And then they just straight out released Shaq Mason. So I guess one way you could look at it is they knew their offensive line was bad, so they got rid of what I imagine, think are the problems. I don't know. They did sign Laken Tomlinson, guard, so kind of replenish there. I'm assuming they're going to be looking for offensive line in the draft. If I'm a betting man. They also traded for Christian Kirk, a rare interdivision trade from the Jaguars. This is a weird one. The rumor was the Jags were just going to straight out release Christian Kirk, and then the next day it was like, oh, actually we're going to trade him to the Texans. So Kirk is an A&M guy, Texas A&M guy, I believe. So it's kind of comes back home. Another Saints legend, Sheldon Rankins, defensive lineman. He goes to the Texans also. They also signed Braxton Berrios and another sneaky receiver signing, Justin Watson from the Chiefs. So they're trying to load up, get some weapons for CJ to throw to, and we'll see if he can bounce back. They also will have a new offensive coordinator when the season starts. Bobby Slowick no longer there. I believe they signed the guy from the Rams to be their new offensive coordinator. Just gonna check that real quick here. Yeah, Nick Caley from the Rams. So they replaced the Shanahan guy with the McVay guy. So let's see how that works. Sticking in the NFC, or I'm sorry, the AFC South. Let's look at the Jaguars. They actually took one of Brandon's guys, Jordan Lewis, the corner. He is now a Jacksonville Jaguar. They also had a little sneaky receiver signing, De'Ami Brown from the Commanders, who played pretty well for the Commanders last year. So I guess he kind of becomes the Christian Kirk. I don't know if he's a direct replacement for Christian Kirk, but if nothing else in position. They did also release receiver Devin Dervaney, and they also released tight end Evan Ingram. I know Evan Ingram's been visiting. I think he visited Denver yesterday, and he visited the Chargers today. So looking for a new home there. To back up Trevor Lawrence, they signed Nick Mullins, quarterback Nick Mullins. They also signed two tight ends, Johnny Munt and Hunter Long, a couple of offensive linemen. So the Jaguars with their new coach there, Liam Cohen. I believe one of those signings, maybe one of these offensive line signings, I don't remember. I believe one of them came from Tampa Bay. I know, obviously, that's a sore subject for Buccaneers fans. So, but Liam Cohen trying to get the ball rolling, as it were, in the AFC South. The other team, we talked a little bit about the Colts with Danny Dimes, just to kind of go over there. Let me back up here to go over there. They also Colts also signed Trevarius Ward from the 49ers. Apparently, the Saints were in on Ward, but he just chose to go to the Colts for whatever reason. So good for them. Cam Bynum from the Vikings, a safety, also goes to the Colts. I'm kind of curious to see what they look like. The Colts always feel like a team that should be contending, and for whatever reason, just doesn't happen. So we'll see what happens there. And then the team with the number one pick in the draft, the Tennessee Titans, they've done a little bit of spending here. They re-signed Sebastian Joseph Day, which is somebody that I think the Saints may have had their eye on as a defensive interior. They signed a punter, Johnny Hecker. Obviously, they released Harold Landry. Harold Landry now with the Patriots. Also signed Cody Barton from the Denver Broncos. The Titans did. Cody Barton, I remember he had a big game against the Saints when they played on that Thursday night when Peyton came back to the Superdome. And then they signed tackle Dan Moore from the Steelers. 4 years, $82 million. I think someone on Bill Simmons' podcast today said that kind of shows you the scarcity of offensive line. If Dan Moore's getting an average of $20 million a year, but so c'est la vie, I guess. And then Xavier Woods, safety. So still interested to see what the Titans do in the draft. It feels like they're going to go Cam Ward, or maybe they try to auction off the pick. Or if not, maybe they just stick and go Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. We'll see. Definitely interesting to see what they do. We talked a little bit about the AFC. Let's go to the AFC North. I haven't really talked about them too much. Let's start with Baltimore. Re-signed Ronnie Stanley, and they see their tackle, and they also re-signed Patrick Ricard, fullback. Today, they signed DeAndre Hopkins. So the DeAndre Hopkins quest for a ring continues. And look, I'm not mad at him. I hope he gets it. He always seemed like a nice enough fellow. So hopefully he can. He almost went to the Ravens, I think, last year when he ended up getting traded to the Chiefs, and he ended up in the Super Bowl, but obviously fell short against the Eagles there. Also in the AFC. In the AFC North, I guess we got to talk about the Bengals. Tough times for Bengals fans right now. They're so they franchise tag T. Higgins. Trey Hendrickson, wants a trade. They did re-sign a couple of folks. They signed B.J. Hill, the defensive interior. They re-signed Mike Gesicki, tight end. And then they re-signed Samaje Perine. I believe that was the day they did that. So I don't know how GM Joe Burrow is going to feel about all those moves, but they're definitely there's definitely room to improve, I would say, for the Bengals there. The Browns, and kind of another stunner over the weekend. So Myles Garrett, who for the last couple of weeks has been saying it's not about the money. I want out of Cleveland. I want to go somewhere I can win. Well, apparently it was about the money. $40 million a year, and all of a sudden he wants to stay in Cleveland now. So, look, good for him. I mean, he's the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL now. So, good for him. Good for the Browns for getting it done. Browns also traded with the Eagles for Kenny Pickett and sent back Dorian Thompson-Robinson to the Eagles. So Browns holding the number 2 pick in the draft. Now I'm kind of wondering, and I think I saw this on a mock draft today. I'm wondering, what if the Browns at 2 just end up taking Abdul Carter, and now you have Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter to terrorize opposing quarterbacks? Unless they really fall in love with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders and they're available, be interesting to see what happens there. I did want to back up real quick. As I mentioned, there was some kind of breaking news as I was just starting the show here. Joey Bosa, 5-time Pro Bowl defensive end, has reached an agreement, 1 year, $12.6 million with the Bills. So the Buffalo Bills, they let go of Von Miller, but Joey Bosa comes in to help with that pass rush. So that's a good signing for Buffalo, I think. And I don't think we talked about them earlier when we were doing Buffalo also signed Joshua Palmer. So 2 former Chargers, I guess now they've signed Bosa and Palmer. So good for them. They extended Josh Allen 6 years, $330 million. Learn how to throw a football, kids. That's all I can tell you. They also extended Khalil Shakir. They also extended Gregory Rousseau and Terrell Bernard. Like I said, they released Von Miller. So Von Miller looking for a new home. They also signed another edge rusher, Michael Hoyt. Hoecht, Hocht, maybe. Apologies if I mispronounced your name. Going back to the AFC North, though, real quick, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they are kind of in an interesting scenario here. So they traded for DK Metcalf from Seattle, we talked about. They also extended DK Metcalf, 5 years, $150 million. They obviously have George Pickens. The question now is who's going to throw the ball. Justin Fields is gone. He's going to the Jets. Russell Wilson is a free agent. They could bring him back. The prevailing thought around the league is this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' job, which I think just for the sheer content is kind of what I'm hoping for, is we get Rodgers as a quarterback, throw into Pickens and Metcalf. I think it would just be chef's kiss. They did lose Najee Harris. He went to the Chargers, signed a deal with them. So that's something else to consider there. They also lost, I mentioned, the offensive lineman that went to Tennessee, Moore, I believe. Yeah, Dan Moore. They lost him. So interesting times in Pittsburgh. I'm guessing by the end of the week we will know who their quarterback will be, and we'll kind of see where that chip falls and kind of go from there. Excuse me. And then, okay, so that's the AFC North. We kick over to the NFC. We talked a little bit about the Saints. I guess we'll do. Let me go back up to the top here. I guess we'll talk about the Falcons. In the NFC South here, Falcons re-signed Mike Hughes. They did pick up Leonard Floyd. As I mentioned, Leonard Floyd released from the 49ers. Falcons are happy to pick him up. They also extended Jake Matthews, their stalwart left tackle. He's been there for a while. A couple other moves there. They did release Grady Jarrett, the defensive lineman. He went to Chicago. We'll talk about Chicago. Chicago's been making some moves too. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. But let's stick in the NFC South. Excuse me. Carolina Panthers. They released Miles Sanders today. So remember when they signed him a couple of years ago, that seemed to be a big deal. And then they draft Jonathan Brooks, and Chuba Hubbard ends up being an Pro Bowl, All-Pro running back. So sorry, Miles. They also extended J.C. Horn, the son of Joe Horn, Saints legend Joe Horn. So good for J.C. getting paid there. They also signed Trevon Moring, safety from the Raiders. A couple of defensive interior linemen, Bobby Brown and Tershawn Wharton. So they're revving up. They also re-signed Saints Cowboy, former patron Saint Cowboy, Andy Dalton, Red Rocket. They also re-signed Tommy Tremble, and also signed a punter. Looks like a new punter. I guess Johnny Hecker was their punter, and he went. We talked about him a minute ago, but Sam Martin now on board for the Panthers to do the punting there. And let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For my money, this is going to be the team that's going to be favored for the NFC South. Re-signed Levante David. They re-signed Chris Godwin. Re-signed Ben Bredesen, their offensive lineman. They did sign, this is kind of fell under the radar, I think, a little bit on day one, Hassan Reddick, who obviously had his problems last year with the Jets. He didn't want to play. He wanted to be traded, all that stuff. But now he goes to Tampa, and actually Tampa plays the Jets next year, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, Tampa, for my money, nothing's happened that really makes me think they won't be in the driver's seat to win the NFC South next year. I do think Carolina's going to be better, and again, we'll see what happens in the draft. Carolina has the 8th pick. I've been saying this whole draft cycle that it would just be so Tampa Bay for them to pick Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, who's like this versatile offensive lineman. That just seems to be what Tampa Bay has been drafting the last couple of years between Graham Barton, Cody Mock, those kind of guys. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm right. Let's go over to the NFC North. Start with the Bears. Shout out to Andy, the Bears fan, Gabe, the Bears fan, Maya, the Bears fan. They've really put in some work here, the Bears. They've got Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney from trades from the Rams and Chiefs, respectively. They also went out and signed from the Falcons Drew Dahlman, their center. So they've really just completely overhauled that offensive line. And at the number 10 pick, I mean, if they want, Will Campbell may be available. Maybe you go that route, or you pick a lineman in the second round. This kind of opens you up. Honestly, this is kind of now an Ashton Jeanty landing spot, potentially, for the Bears. I did ask, this is before free agency, but I did ask my friend Andy, the Bears fan, I said, how would you feel about Jeanty at 10? And he said, whoever the Bears draft at 10, their weight needs to start with a 3. So unless Ashton Jeanty's going to bulk up here in the next month or so, I don't think that's going to be it. But maybe that's changed. I'll have to reach out and ask him. But yeah, good start for the Bears for sure, for Ben Johnson and their crew. So good for them. Let's take a look at Detroit. Obviously lost a lot in terms of their coaching staff, but did re-sign Dan Skipper, who I'm sure is one of Brandon's favorites, going back to that game from a couple of years ago. Derek Barnes, linebacker, and then Saints legend Marcus Davenport as an edge. So good for Marcus Davenport, still getting paid. Good on him. And then they also signed DJ Reed. So we mentioned Carlton Davis going to the Patriots from Detroit. Detroit then, kind of the domino effect there, they go out and get DJ Reed from the Jets. 3 years, $48 million. Lions also released, I should say, Zadarius Smith, who they had picked up in a trade last year when Hutchinson got hurt. So we'll see what the Lions do. The Packers been pretty quiet, honestly, but they've signed a guard, Aaron Banks, from the 49ers, and then they signed a corner, Nate Hobbs. They re-signed their kicker, Brandon McManus, and linebacker Isaiah McDuffie. So, like I said, a little quiet from the Packers so far. We'll see what they maybe got cooking in the draft or maybe later in free agency. So, and again, who knows? When the league year opens tomorrow, maybe all this starts to blow up. So we'll see. Obviously, any of these deals are not technically official until tomorrow when the league year opens. Just keep that in mind. And then last but not least, in the NFC North, let's look at the Vikings. I mentioned they signed 2 offensive linemen from the Colts, Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly. They also re-signed Aaron Jones. Obviously lost Sam Darnold. Looks like it's going to be J.J. McCarthy's show. This was also mentioned as an Aaron Rodgers landing spot, which would just be hilarious because he basically would just be following the Brett Favre path, as it were. The Vikings did sign a Rodgers, but it was Isaiah Rodgers, a cornerback. They also re-signed their own cornerback, Byron Murphy Jr., and got Javon Hargrove, we mentioned from the 49ers, that they let go. but also Jonathan Allen, who was released from the Commanders. So beefing up their interior on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive line, are the Vikings. So they definitely are trying to keep pace. They don't want to be. They don't want to. They don't want to have a fallback year after making the playoffs last year. Let's see. We talked about I guess we'll do the NFC East. I know I talked about the Cowboys. The Eagles re-signed Zach Bond. So good for Zach Bond getting his money. Extended Saquon Barkley. Darius Slay and James Bradbury both got released. And then they traded, as I mentioned earlier, Kenny Pickett and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. For the Eagles, they're kind of in that, kind of where the Saints were a little bit almost after their Super Bowl of like, you got to pay people, got to figure out how you're going to keep everybody happy. So I know they lost a lot. They're losing a lot of their defensive guys. Josh Sweat, we mentioned, with Arizona. Milton Williams with the Patriots. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, they traded. Bradbury, they traded. Darius Slay. Darius Slay, I believe, let me double check this, but I believe he went ahead and signed with the Steelers. It's not listed here, but I believe that is where Darius Slay is going to end up, with the Steelers. The Giants, we mentioned Debo from the Saints, Javon Holland from the Dolphins, Darius Slayton, they re-signed, their wide receiver. They signed Brandon's guy, Chauncey Golston from the Cowboys, edge rusher. And they re-signed Tommy DeVito as their quarterback. So if nothing else, they got Tommy DeVito as their quarterback. Again, this could be a landing spot for maybe Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. And I think the only team we have left maybe is the Commanders. I apologize if I missed anybody, but Commanders are definitely trying to gear up here. Trading for, we talked about the Debo trade. I mentioned Laramie Tunsil from Texans. Trying to, again, the Commanders are in this mode of, we have a rookie quarterback. He's on a rookie deal. This will be year 2 of the Jaden Daniels experience. So they kind of got to make hay, as it were, while they can. They signed Javon Kinlaw, defensive interior. They signed Will Harris from the Saints. I mentioned the Saints losing Will Harris. Also re-signed Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz. So Commanders are not holding court, as it were. They're trying to strike while the iron's hot, as it were, to be competitive in the NFC. So I think I've gone through every team there. Let's just do real quick. Let's go through. So the quarterbacks that are left that have not signed, this is on PFF. So you got Aaron Rodgers, you got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett actually did sign with the Cardinals. They just haven't updated that yet. Marcus Mariota still out there, Mason Rudolph still out there, Joe Flacco, and Mac Jones. So none of those names really inspire much, but we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. I think the next domino to fall is going to be Rodgers. So let's say Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh. Maybe that opens the door for Russell Wilson to go to the Giants. Jameis Winston. I saw Jameis was getting some interest from, I think, the 49ers were one of the teams. There were 2 teams. I remember the 49ers. I don't remember who the other team was. Look, I got nothing but love for Jameis. I hope he gets to play a little bit longer in the league, for sure. What I wanted to do is, actually, since I've got this up, I'll just do it this way. I was going to do it by division, but let's just do a quick kind of recap here, just to kind of go through. So I'm going to go through each team. I'll do this fairly rapid fire, but I just want to go through each team and just kind of say, coach, quarterback, are they set for 2025, which all the coaches should be set? Well, some more for the quarterback. So the quarterback's set. Do we know for sure who their quarterback, or we think we know for sure who their quarterback's going to be in 2025? And then the coach. Is the coach on the hot seat? So we'll start with Arizona. We'll just go in alphabetical order here. Arizona Cardinals. Like I said, a lot of smoke around Kyler Murray potentially getting traded. And speaking of hot seat. I feel like Gannon's on the hot seat here, which is why I don't think they will trade Kyler Murray. I think Gannon's going to want to go down with the ship, as it were, potentially with Kyler Murray. So we'll see. But if they have another season of like 6-11, 7-10, I'd be interested to see what happens with Gannon for the Falcons. So I think the Falcons definitely have their quarterback, Michael Penix. The coaching with Raheem Morris, I don't know. It kind of depends on how they handle this Penix and Cousins situation. Something else I heard on, I think it was Mike Florio talking about it, Pro Football Talk. He said, what happens if Penix struggles at the beginning of the season? Are they going to go to Cousins? Because again, as of right now, Kirk Cousins still a member of the Atlanta Falcons, and it looks like he's going to be for a little bit. So interested to see. So I think Raheem Morris's seat might be a little hot, depending. Now, obviously, for the Falcons, the best case scenario is Penix starts out on fire, and you win the first 2 or 3 games, and maybe there's an injury. This is my thought. This goes back to Carr too, for Cousins and Carr. I guess I'll just kind of loop them into this group. I feel like both of them are in a situation where if there's an injury for someone, for a team that is close, maybe a playoff contender, and quarterback goes down summer, early training camp, then maybe that's where you start to see a trade. Cousins, I guess, could also be kind of considered a wild card. I know Cleveland was a team that was maybe in the mix trying to trade for him, but as of right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It looks like he's going to be a $40 million backup quarterback, as it were. So the Ravens, yeah, we're good there. Lamar and Coach Harbaugh. Same with Buffalo with Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. Panthers, yep, should be good there with Bryce Young and Dave Canales. I feel like, again, look out for the Panthers this year. I think they're going to be a team to watch. The Bears, obviously, they just hired Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, so they're set. The Bengals with Burrow and Taylor, again, the Bengals are not doing themselves any favors. They're not doing Zach Taylor any favors with the whole Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and Burrow obviously being outspoken about wanting his guys there, and I don't blame him. I mean, I think Burrow can kind of see his career taking the Drew Brees 2013 to 2015 path with the Saints, where he's going to throw for 5,000 yards, but it ain't going to matter because their defense stinks. So, but by the same token, he wants to be sure that his guys are there, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I would say Zach Taylor's on the hot seat, but if they end up trading, say, T. Higgins, how do you – I don't know. It wouldn't make sense, but who knows? Cleveland. So here's the first team I think that we land on where we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. And the quarterback may not even be on the roster yet. I mean, they did just trade for Kenny Pickett. But I mean, I don't know if that's a certainty. Now, I'm just thinking about this now. Maybe they traded for Kenny Pickett because they have been told by Atlanta that Kirk Cousins is not available. Maybe this is kind of their backup plan. As far as the coach, Stefanski's a 2-time coach of the year. We talked about this during the season. I almost feel like this would be more of a Stefanski just walks away from the Browns than the Browns fire him. The Deshaun Watson thing's still hanging over them. They're getting a little bit more settled with it, I think, because of the re-injury of the Achilles. It doesn't look like Deshaun Watson's ever going to play for the Browns ever again. He may not even play in the NFL ever again. But we'll see. We'll see. So right now, it looks like Kenny Pickett's their guy, but I wouldn't mark that down in pen for sure. Cowboys, they just hired Brian Schottenheimer. Obviously, Dak's there. Interested to see what they do as a backup quarterback. I know Stephen Jones talked about them drafting somebody. Cooper Rush is a free agent. He's out there. So be interested to see maybe if they just bring him back. Trey Lance is a free agent also. Broncos are set. They got Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Lions are set with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, although I wonder, well, they do have Hendon Hooker as their backup. And they also signed Teddy Bridgewater late in the season last year, so they should be okay in case Goff goes down. But I was thinking more for the future. Once Goff isn't going to play forever, obviously. Packers, LaFleur and Love, they're good. Texans with D'Amico and C.J. Stroud. I feel like D'Amico got rid of Bobby Slowick to kind of save himself from being on the hot seat because it's weird though. I mean, if you're the Texans, and I talked about this with Brandon during the season, like you're pretty sure you're going to win the AFC South every year, or at least going to be in contention for the AFC South every year, make the playoffs, and then you get a situation like you did this year where you get a home game, you face a Chargers team that maybe was a little ahead of schedule, as it were, and you win a playoff game, and so like how can this definitely would be a situation where if you're going to get rid of D'Amico Ryans, which I'm not saying they are, that would be ridiculous. But if you were going to do it, you better have a pretty darn good backup plan ready to go. So I think we're good there. The Colts. This is another one where obviously they just signed Daniel Jones, so it's going to be between him and Richardson. Shane Steichen seat might get a little warm if this doesn't work. Let's say Richardson wins the job, quote unquote, out of camp, but then doesn't play well. Steichen is an offensive guy, so came over from the Eagles as the offensive coordinator. So we'll see there. Jaguars with Lawrence and Liam Cohen. So we'll see how they do in the first season together. Chiefs, Mahomes and Reed. Yeah, they're good. Raiders with Carroll and Geno. Again, I'm very interested to see what happens there. I do feel like one of those two. So the AFC West obviously had 3 teams make the playoffs last year: Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos. The Raiders were the only team that didn't. I do feel like one of those two, the Broncos and the Chargers, one of them may take a step back. I don't know if the Raiders are going to take a step forward to get in that playoff spot because you still have teams like the Bengals. You still have teams lurking out there for that 7th playoff spot that the Broncos ended up getting this year. But I do think the Raiders are going to be more competitive this year. I'd be surprised if they're not. Then, and also with the Raiders, I guess I should mention, they did, again, another edge rusher who maybe was a little unhappy, Max Crosby. Money fixes that. Gave him a big extension, 3 years, $106.5 million. So good on him. Good for him. The Chargers, we just kind of talked about them, Herbert and Harbaugh. I just remembered, saw today on Twitter, Max Crosby posted something about this is his 5th year anniversary of sobriety. So good for him. Happy to see he's doing well in that area, not just in football. So we said the Chargers are good. Rams, they extended Stafford, and I mean, as long as McVay wants to coach, they're gonna be fine. Dolphins, this is one to keep an eye on. I think Tua. I mean, I know they signed Zach Wilson. I almost feel like if Tua got hurt and Zach came in and played well, that would save Mike McDaniel's job. As weird as that might seem, I do think McDaniel's seat is a little warm. Going to be a little warm because you're not really seeing, and maybe that's why they signed Zach Wilson as kind of in the case that Tua can't quite get him there. And I'm not saying Zach will, but it's just I don't know. I don't know that something to keep an eye on. I would say for McDaniel, for sure. The Vikings. So it looks like it's going to be McCarthy and obviously Kevin O'Connell coming off Coach of the Year. Curious to see what happens with McCarthy in his first year as a starter. Another one to keep your eye on. Patriots, they just signed Vrabel. Obviously, they have the Drake. I don't think it's too much to say that Patriots could be a playoff team this year. Honestly, they really could be, or they could at least be a team that kind of sneaks around. And we'll obviously talk more about that as we get closer to the season. My Saints. I mean, Kellen Moore is, I guess, safe. I don't think he's going to be a one and done. The Derek Carr thing, we played the clip from Florio earlier. We'll see what happens. Giants, Dayball definitely on the hot seat. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Feels like they're going to. So so weird, with this draft cycle and how long the draft cycle is. I mean, a week ago, you know, earlier this week, it felt like a slam dunk at 3. They were going to draft a quarterback. Now you're starting to hear things like, well, maybe not. We talked about a mock draft last week. I believe it was Lance Zierlein who hypothesized that the Browns would maybe take Travis Hunter at 2, trade back at the end of the first round, and take Shador if he falls. I don't know why the Giants couldn't do that too. Like if Hunter falls to 3, maybe they draft Hunter at 3, and then if Shador falls, they do the same thing, trade back up and get Shador. But yeah, Dayball's he's definitely got to do something because this is, I mean, John, the Mr. Mara, the owner of the Giants, basically said that. It was like, your job's on the line. Like, we're not going to take another year. So for him and Joe Shane, it's put up or shut up time. The Jets just hired Aaron Glenn, brought in Justin Fields. So I think they're good there. Eagles, Sirianni, and Jalen Hurts. I do think they're going to take, I don't know. I mean, I say they're going to take a step back, but I mean, their defense will, maybe for sure. The offense, we'll see. I mean, Kellen Moore obviously is with the Saints now. Steelers, we've got Tomlin. Feels like their quarterback's either going to be Russell or Rodgers. Maybe they are the team that ends up with Shador from the draft. I do think Shador to the Steelers would be good for Shador. That would be a good environment for him. But Arthur Smith kind of the wild card there as the offensive coordinator. 49ers, this is an interesting one. So we talked about them trying to pay Purdy and then Shanahan. Listen, like, I think we need to keep an eye on Shanahan this year. Like, if the 49ers have another year like they did last year, even with injuries, I'm curious to see what happens. Like if they kind of sputter and they don't make a move, don't compete in the NFC West, and I know the Rams are loaded, and I mean, it looks like Seattle's going to maybe take a step back now that they've kind of transitioned. They're going to transition to Darnold, and the Cardinals. We talked about them, so yeah, it's really interesting to see what happens with the 49ers this year. We talked about Seattle, Mike McDonald, Sam Darnold. Yeah, Mike McDonald and Sam Darnold. Rolled off the tongue weird for some reason. But yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Obviously, Clint Kubiak, the new offensive coordinator. We'll see. They got to, like I said, got to fix their offensive line for sure. Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles, Baker. We didn't talk about this with the whole Liam Cohen fiasco when that happened. I was almost surprised that Tampa didn't just fire Bowles just to promote Cohen, just to keep him. But again, if you go back and kind of rehash that whole fiasco, they thought Cohen was back, and then he wasn't. So, yeah, we'll see. I still, like I said, I still think they're the team to beat in the NFC South. But again, it's not nothing that they're on another offensive coordinator, right? So it was Canales, then it was Cohen, and now it's gosh, I don't even remember who it is now. I'll have to look it up here in a little bit. Titans, Brian Callahan. Again, I mean, Will Levis is there. I think Cam Ward's going to be their pick at number 1. Maybe they're in the market. Maybe they're the team that I've heard, going back to the Derek Carr thing, they're the team that I've heard to kind of look out for with Carr because, Callahan and Carr have a connection from previous stops. So who knows? Maybe they'll. I mean, obviously they're not going to do. If they do anything at this point, to Florio's point earlier, it's going to be after the draft. It's going to be after June 1st. So we'll see. And then finally, the Commanders. Yeah, Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels. They're looking pretty good right now. So yeah, so kind of went through there. Kind of a long-winded jaunt through the NFL and what's going on. So we're going to transition here. I'm going to do – so usually at this point we would do a draft. We're not going to be doing a draft. I am going to do a ranking here. in a minute, but I do want to play. I'll go ahead and play Immaculate Grid here for you fine folks. So I'll try to make it quick here. I'm going to go back and do one way back in the archives here. This is grid number 40, 40. The reason I picked this one is because it has both the Saints and the Cowboys on it. Mentioned earlier the Peyton Turner not eligible yet until he plays a game for the Cowboys. But here, for real quick, the rows here are Cowboys, Ravens, Broncos, the columns, Saints, Titans, and first team AP All Pro. So I'll start with Saints Cowboys. I'm going to go with someone we use. This is a fun one to discover. Tony Fritz. He was a kicker. I used him as a patron Saint Cowboy. I think it was one of the last weeks of the regular season. 0.09%. So that's a good start for us here. Let me stay in the Saints column here. I'll go down Saints Broncos and use a oldie but a goodie. That's Tracy Porter. Okay, 3%. Thought it'd be a little lower than that, but that's okay. Let's look at Ravens Saints. So we'll stay in that column, do kind of the Jeopardy style here. We'll finish the column. Well, I mentioned Ricky Williams earlier. He would be eligible. Talked about him potentially, but I'm not going to use him. I think that number might spike up. Actually, I could use. Oh, I know what I'm going to use. Use Saints Cowboys legend, but he also played for the Ravens. That's Billy Cundiff. 0.3%. So right now I'm at about 3% after one column, so that's good. Let's go to that top row. Let's look at Cowboys and Titans. And I should mention Tennessee Titans. That also means you have the Houston Oilers history there as well. So just keep that in mind. Cowboys and Titans. Oh, another oldie but a goodie. Let's go BW Webb. If it'll let me type here, BW Webb. There we go. Yeah, 0.1%. All right, that works. Titans and Ravens. I believe this is you could use Derek Mason. You could use Derrick Henry. You could use the late great Steve McNair. I'm going to use, again, another oldie but a goodie, Jason Babin. By the way, shout out to Immaculate Grid. They just released today Immaculate Grid stats, so you can now keep track of your stats, and it shows you who your most used players are and all that good stuff. Jason Babin actually is my most used player because he's played for like 9 teams we talked about before. And then Titans and Broncos, I think my go-to here is Travis Henry, but let me double check. Shout out to Donnie, the Broncos fan. Yeah, Travis Henry. Let's use that. Oh, 7%. Okay, so a little bit of a spike there, but that's okay. No problem there. All right, now we need to find some all pros here, some AP all pros. Let's start with the Broncos since we're there. I'm trying to think. I mean, Von Miller jumps to mind. Shannon Sharp, Champ Bailey, Steve Atwater. Well, Surtain, I guess you could use now. Oh, I know what I'm going to use. I'm going to use Elvis Doomerville. Yeah, 0.6%. That's not bad. Let's go to the Ravens. Elvis Doomerville actually would have been a match for Ravens Broncos. That's not the category here, so we'll move on. Ravens All Pro. Obviously, you got the usual suspects: Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Lamar Jackson, all those guys. I'm going to use. Could have used Billy Cundiff here, but I've already used them for. Let's use their fullback that they just re-signed, Patrick Ricard. Hey, 0.005%. I'll take that. And then finally, the Cowboys. Whoever I pick, I know Brandon's going to have a much better pick. Did Terrence Newman make an All-Pro? I feel like he did. I could use Cavante Turpin. He resigned. They resigned him today. He's prime time. Dion. No, I could use Zach Martin, obviously. Legend. Actually, let's use. I'm gonna use Calvin Hill, the father of Grant Hill, who was one of the first basketball players. He was one of my first favorite basketball players. Grant Hill back in the '90s with the Pistons. All right, that gives me a score of 12 total. Let's look at some stats here. All right, so most popular Cowboys Saints, Andy Dalton. Cowboys Titans, DeMarco Murray. First team All Pro for the Cowboys, Emmitt Smith. No surprise there. Saints Ravens, most popular there, Mark Ingram. No surprise. Ravens Titans, most popular, Steve McNair. First team All Pro for the Ravens, most popular, Ray Lewis. For the Broncos, first team All Pro, Peyton Manning. For Broncos Titans, Eric Decker. There's a name from the past. And then for Broncos Saints, most popular, Emmanuel Sanders. I liked Emmanuel Sanders when he was on the Saints. He was on the team that lost the NFC Championship game to the Rams. And that's all I'll say about that. But so good score there, 12% or 12, I should say, on the Immaculate Grid. All right, now the last thing here, we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to do a draft. I am going to do a ranking, though. Let me pull up Letterboxd here. I mentioned Letterboxd earlier. With the recent passing of the late, great Gene Hackman, obviously want to send my sympathies to his family. I know there's been some craziness with what actually happened with him and his wife, his dearly departed wife. I do want to look at. I'm going to do a ranking. I'll just do a top 5 for Mr. Hackman for his films. We'll just kind of close out there for the week. Just something a little different. Kind of get off of the football talk here. So let me put him up. Let's see. Just give me 1 second here, folks. So I'm gonna do a top 5. Some of I'll just do kind of an honorable mention here. I have not seen all of Mr. Hackman's films. Definitely need to remedy that. But some of the films I have been wanting to see. There's a 2001 movie he's in called Heist with Danny DeVito and looks like Delroy Lindo. I do want to see that. Absolute Power with Clint Eastwood. I think I saw parts of that in the past. Behind Enemy Lines with Luke Wilson. I've heard good things about that as well. The Replacements. I've definitely seen The Replacements. Not in my top 5, but definitely want to mention it. It's good Keanu, good Gene Hackman. I think I've heard that Hackman was basically doing it for a paycheck and basically showed up, did what he had to do, and left. Like he wasn't very collaborative, let's say, on the process. Poseidon Adventure from 1972. I think I've seen that one. Runaway Jury. That's another one that I need to remedy. I need to see that one. I have seen Hoosiers. I'm not going to put it in my top 5, but definitely one of his better performances for sure. Another one I'll mention here, Scarecrow. I do want to watch this one. 1973. It's him and Al Pacino, and it's like a road movie. Like they're kind of read the description. I don't remember it fully, but definitely want to check that out. He was also in a 2001 film called The Mexican with Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts. do want to see that. Get Shorty. That one's on my list as well to see. The Quick and the Dead. I've seen a lot of clips flying around about that one. That's from '95. I believe it's got a young Leonardo DiCaprio in it. So definitely putting that on the list to see. His first big break, I guess, was Bonnie and Clyde in 1967. He played Clyde's brother. Definitely putting that on the list. And then two movies that I've seen. Oh, I guess I also should mention he was the kind of the first movie portrayal of Lex Luthor in the Superman movies. So I've definitely seen bits and pieces of those growing up. But two I want to mention that won't make my list here, but The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. I think of that movie more for Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, but Gene Hackman definitely plays his role for sure. And then Young Frankenstein. He's the blind priest in Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks film. Okay, so I've got here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I guess I'm going to do top 10. So we'll do it that way. Number 10 here. And I'm just going by, this is on Letterboxd. I have this this rating here. Let me see if I can I'll just do a new list here. So while I'm speaking to you fine folks, I'm going to create my list on Letterboxd here. I'm just going to do Gene Hackman top 10 here. So let's start with number 10. It's a movie from 1987. It's called No Way Out. Stars Gene Hackman and Kevin Costner. This is definitely Kevin Costner on the way up. It's a Roger Donaldson film. It's kind of a conspiracy. I don't want to speak too much about it, but definitely check it out. It's definitely worth. It's got a very great reveal at the end. So definitely highly recommend No Way Out. Number 9, this is a movie I saw recently. I think I talked about it last week or the week before. That's Night Moves. It's from 1975. Arthur Penn directing. It's Hackman plays a former football player, actually, turned private detective, who basically is trying to do the right thing, and that leads to trouble, basically. So that's all I'll really say there. But it's definitely worth seeing. Also stars James Woods as well. So then I'll go number 8 here, Enemy of the State. This is from 1998. It's a Tony Scott film starring Will Smith. This is a lot of people think that this movie for Gene Hackman is a kind of a sequel, quasi sequel to another movie we'll talk about here in a minute. But great performance from him, great performance from Will Smith. This is really Will Smith kind of, I would say this is probably him at his peak. I say that. I know I haven't seen the King Richard movie from a couple years ago, but definitely when I think of Will Smith, this is one of the first movies I think of, Enemy of the State from Tony Scott. All right, let's go to number 7, The Firm. This is Sidney Pollack adaptation of John Grisham novel. My mom, growing up, had all the John Grisham novels. This was the first one that she read, and I remember her really wanting to see this film. And very good film. Again, when I think of this movie, I do think of Hackman, but I do obviously think more of Tom Cruise. This is definitely Cruise. This is the movie he did right after A Few Good Men, so he's really on that trajectory upward. But solid performance from Hackman as well. Then what number are we at? That's 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, that's number 6. I'm going to go number 6 here. I'm going to go Mississippi Burning. So this is a 1988 film. Get it here. Yeah. Alan Parker. Hackman plays a FBI agent, I believe. This kind of goes almost in line with the order that we talked about a minute ago. He plays FBI agent sent down to Mississippi to kind of basically investigate the KKK and their, the what they've got going on, for lack of a better word. Here, let me pull up the description from good old IMDb. Just give me a sec here, folks. This also stars Willem Dafoe. So, yeah, they're two FBI agents. Hackman and Dafoe are both FBI agents. And it says two FBI agents with wildly different styles arrive in Mississippi to investigate the disappearance of some civil rights activists. So, obviously, there's a KKK element. Let me see if I can find the time period. Looks like it's the 60s. Yeah. So, 1964. There we go. 3 civil rights workers from the North disappear in a small Mississippi town, and the FBI are sent to investigate. So there you go. And that's Hackman and Defoe. Frances McDormand is in this movie. Arlie Ermy in this movie. Stephen Tobolowsky. There's a Seinfeld connection. Also Michael Rooker. Another Seinfeld connection here. Kevin Dunn, who plays in the mail and bonding episode. He's the friend the male friend that Jerry can't break up with, as it were. So definitely recommend Mississippi Burning if you get a chance. Okay, let's go next. So now we're going to get into the top 5 here. We're going to go Crimson Tide at number 5. This is 1995 film, another Tony Scott film. This is him going toe-to-toe, Gene Hackman, that is, going toe-to-toe with Denzel Washington. And kind of passing that torch to Denzel Washington. I think I mentioned it on the show, talked about it because I saw it for the first time in the last year or so. Just so happened to see it, not because of Mr. Hackman's passing. I just hadn't seen it before. But yeah, definitely another tremendous performance by Gene Hackman, and can't recommend it enough. This is widely considered one of the best submarine movies, right up there with Hunt for Red October. So definitely check it out. And then number 4, I'm going to go with The Royal Tenenbaums. This is Wes Anderson's film from 2001. This is not Hackman's final performance, but it's definitely his final great performance, I think a lot of people will say. Word is he was kind of cantankerous during this shoot. Him and Wes Anderson did not get along, but you would never know watching the film. It's definitely it's basically they just kind of throw him into the Wes Anderson collection of players, as it were. Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, Gwyneth Paltrow is phenomenal in this movie. Danny Glover's in this movie. And Hackman steals the show. He is the titular Royal Tenenbaum, and just a phenomenal performance. Nothing but good things to say about this movie. The one word I always come away with from Wes Anderson films is delightful, and this is no exception. These are just delightful films to watch. Okay, we're at the top 3 now. So for number 3, I'm going to go Unforgiven, which is Mr. Hackman won an Oscar for Best Supporting Role. This is 1992, Unforgiven. It's directed by Clint Eastwood. It stars Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, and Gene Hackman. Hackman won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for this. It's just a classic Western. I remember my dad didn't watch a lot of movies, but I remember this being one that he liked. This is, like I said, just a classic Western. Gene Hackman's part is he's the sheriff of the town, and he's not all good. I'll say probably more towards the bad than he is good, but he runs afoul, let's say, of Clint Eastwood, and this is kind of Clint Eastwood's swan song to Westerns, and he's kind of playing off the tropes of his characters from westerns gone by, from those those spaghetti westerns that he was in the I guess 60s or 70s, like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and those movies. So again, highly recommended. And then the last two, again, both of these films I've seen within the last year. Again, not necessarily because Gene Hackman passed away. It was just that, they were films I needed to see. My number two is going to be The French Connection. He plays Popeye Doyle in this film. This was, I believe, his first Oscar win. I'll check that here. 1971, William Friedkin, French Connection, Popeye Doyle. This, again, kind of like his character in Unforgiven. He's a little better in this, I would say, but he's definitely still got some surliness to him. So if you haven't seen The French Connection, I would definitely recommend it. I have not seen French Connection 2 yet, but it's on my list. Actually, also starring in The French Connection, we talked about Jaws earlier with Roy Scheider. Roy Scheider appears in The French Connection. He's kind of Gene Hackman's right hand guy in that movie. So, and then finally, my number one Gene Hackman performance here, The Conversation. The Conversation is Francis Ford Coppola movie. This is from 1974. I believe, I'd have to check my dates, but I believe this was Francis Ford Coppola did this movie either in between The Godfathers or right after Godfather 2. But this is, Hackman plays this kind of surveillance specialist. I'll read you the tagline here from IMDb. A paranoid secretive surveillance expert has a crisis of conscience when he suspects that the couple he is spying on will be murdered. So this kind of goes with the Night Moves role, in that Hackman's trying to do the right thing and it leads to ill-intended consequences for him, if that makes sense. But yeah, Conversation, phenomenal film. I would highly recommend checking it out. I'm just double checking to see the chronology here from Coppola's perspective. Let's see. Okay, so this would have been in between. So Godfather 1 comes out in 72, The Conversation and Godfather Part 2 come out. They both come out in 74, but it looks like Conversation came out first. So, but yeah, this is wonderful role. And actually, another connection with Godfather, John Cazale, who plays Fredo in the Godfather movies. He's in The Conversation. So, again, definitely highly, highly recommend checking that out. I'm just double checking again so Hackman won his Oscar for The French Connection. That was his first Oscar. And then he won. The second Oscar was Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Unforgiven. He was also nominated as Best Actor in a Leading Role for Mississippi Burning. That was on my list. And then also was acted Best Actor in a Supporting Role for both Bonnie and Clyde and a movie I have not seen, and I didn't mention it earlier, but I Never Sang for My Father. I have heard of it. I guess I need to add that to the list too. So we'll definitely put that on the list to check out. All right, so there's your top 10. So let me again just go real quick. Go back quick through it. At 10, I have No Way Out. At 9, Night Moves. 8, Enemy of the State. 7, The Firm. 6, Mississippi Burning. At 5, I have Crimson Tide. 4, The Royal Tannenbaums. 3, Unforgiven. 2, The French Connection. And then finally at 1, The Conversation. So rest in peace, Gene Hackman. And we'll see you down the road, as it were. And we're also going to sign off here for this week. Again, Brandon won't be back for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, first week of April, he'll be back. I will be back next week with this show. I'm also working on a side project, movie podcast. Still working on a name. Trying to get some things worked out there. But basically, it's going to be kind of a podcast where I just talk about a movie that I enjoy. Hopefully, we'll have some guests. We're still trying to get some guests here on the show on Bless Them Boys as well. So, like I said, if you got feedback for us, you can email us, blesseddemboys@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Blue Sky. Leave us a rating and review on Spotify, on iTunes. Again, any support that you can send our way, we are greatly appreciative of it. And we will catch you all next week. But until then, happy football, everybody.